Hello again, everybody. Professor Romano here as usual, and this is Module 5, Constitutional Law and Freedoms. All right, so this module, we're going to be talking about the constitutional law and your freedoms as a U.S. citizen. All right, being a U.S. citizen, you are entitled to certain rights and you are entitled to certain freedoms by just living here. Okay, but before we get into today's lecture, two things. Number one, the quizzes. Overall, very satisfied with the quizzes. Everybody seems to be doing extremely well. That makes me very happy. If you have any questions on any of the answers, or if there's any confusion, please feel free to reach out, call me, text me, email me, whatever it is. I'd be more than happy to go over what it is you want to go over. Number two, I've noticed, even though I'm happy with the quizzes, I've noticed not everyone is doing well on the quizzes, and not everyone is logging on and watching the videos. Okay? So, therefore, since you guys are logging on and watching the videos, I'm going to reward you. At the end of each video, I'm going to ask you a question. A simple question. You text me or email me the correct answer, I will give you 1 point on your next quiz. So if there are 4 videos between now and the next quiz, and you watch all 4 videos and you text me 4 right answers, you'll get 4 points extra as extra credit on that quiz. Okay? Fair enough? Good. Constitutional law and freedoms. My favorite module. Number 1, constitutional law. The U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which were established in 1787 and 1791 respectively, make up the Supreme Court of the land. All right. So the U.S. Constitution, we broke away from England, we declared our independence, we fought them, gained our independence, and we established our Constitution, how we are going to run our government. 4 years later, we added some amendments to it. We added 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, and those first 10 amendments were known as the Bill of Rights, and they're still known as the Bill of Rights. So the U.S. Constitution, established in 1787, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution were established 4 years later and amended our law. Together, they are known as the Supreme Court of the land. Under the U.S. Constitution, it establishes our separation of powers. Under Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, it establishes our legislative branch. All right? The legislative branch is made up of 2 houses. Number 1, the Senate. All right? And senators come from each state. There are 2 senators elected from each state. And since we have 50 states, there are 100 senators sitting down there in Congress in Washington, D.C. Each state has 2 senators that they send to the Senate in Washington, D.C. The second house of Congress, of the legislative branch, is known as the House of Representatives. Now, there are a certain number of House representatives, but it's based upon state population. Okay, so if a state loses some population, they lose House members. If a state gains in population, they gain House members. So as more people move from the Northeast and move to Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona, the states of the Northeast lose representatives, while the states down in the South gain in representative power. Okay? So there's only a certain number, but it's always shifting who they're representing. It's based upon the state's population. All right, Article 1, the legislative branch. I'm going to post a video under this module. It's called I'm Just a Bill. It's a funny little video. Watch it. It tells you how laws are passed in the legislative branch. Okay? Watch it. It takes like 2 minutes. It's funny. It's cute. I'm Just a Bill. Second, Article 2 under the U.S. Constitution establishes the executive branch. All right? The executive branch is the president and the vice president. Now, how do they get to office? Well, it's not based upon popular vote. All right? it is based upon something known as the Electoral College. Each state has so many Electoral College votes, again, based on population. All right, so the U.S. president and the U.S. vice president are sent to the White House, not based upon popular vote, but based upon something known as the Electoral College. Reading the book goes over pretty well on what the Electoral College is. All right, so if you remember Al Gore and George Bush, Al Gore won the presidency based upon popular vote, but since we elect our president based upon the Electoral College, and George Bush had more votes on the Electoral College, he was named president. Al Gore had more people in the United States voted for Al Gore than George Bush, but George Bush became the president based upon this thing known as the Electoral College. All right. The third branch of our government is the judicial branch. All right. Article 3 established the judicial branch and established the U.S. Supreme Court. All right. And it also allowed for Congress, Senate, and House of Representatives to create other courts as they seem necessary. All right. So Article 3 established the U.S. Supreme Court and then gave the power to Congress to establish other courts federal courts as they deemed necessary. All right, this system, this three-branch system, is known as checks and balances. It is to ensure that no one branch of the federal government becomes too powerful. They all check one another. They all balance one another out. All right, one president can't become too powerful. He'll get checked by the Congress. Congress can't pass crazy laws because the judicial is going to say no, they're unconstitutional. You can't do that. All right, so they'll keep an eye on one another. All right, like I said, the judicial branch makes sure that the laws that the executive branch passes are constitutional. If they're not, they're gone. All right, the executive branch has the power to enforce laws and also to establish treaties with foreign governments. But their role is really to enforce any laws that are on the books. And it's legislative. Besides creating the federal courts, their job is to enact laws and statutes that can change judicially made law as long as they are constitutional. All right, this is happening. I don't know if you're aware. I mean, with gay rights, the U.S. Supreme Court just came out and said gay marriage is constitutional. We don't care what the legislature says. Under the Constitution, you have a right to be married no matter what your sexual preference is. Okay? So it's happening right before our eyes. The Supremacy Clause. All right? Moving on from checks and balances, moving on from the separation of powers, the Supremacy Clause. The Supremacy Clause means that the federal Constitution, laws, treaties, regulations are the supreme law of the land. Any state or local law that is in conflict or says something different than anything given than any federal law is not valid or is deemed unconstitutional. All right? And that's playing out again before us. The U.S. Supreme Court said gay marriage is constitutionally protected. Texas is saying, no, we're not in Texas. We don't want it. Well, too bad, Texas. Okay, because the federal U.S. Supreme Court is the Supreme Court of the land, and you have to abide by it. You want the benefits of living in this country. You want the benefits of being a state in this country. You have to abide by our rules. All right. Under the U.S. Constitution was established in 1787. 4 years later, the Bill of Rights. All right. Established in 1791. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments of the federal Constitution. All right. The Bill of Rights was established because people expressed fear that the federal government would abuse its power. Now, you got to remember, we came from England, but they abused us. They abused their power. The king abused his power. His will was what everybody had to abide by. So we established our country as the United States. All right, we set up the U.S. Constitution, but people still weren't comfortable. They were like, no, we don't know, I don't understand this federal government thing. So they feared that the federal government would abuse its power. So therefore, the Bill of Rights was enacted to limit the power and the authority of the federal government. Okay? Bill of Rights limits the power and authority of the federal government and guarantees civil rights and protections. Guarantees us our rights. That'll definitely be on the quiz. The Bill of Rights limits the power and authority of the federal government. It does in no way limit the power of the people. All right? It doesn't limit the power of the people at all. It limits the power of the Bill of Rights limits the powers and authority of the federal government. All right. Since the Bill of Rights was enacted in 1791, 17 additional amendments have been added on to the Constitution. End of slavery, 13th Amendment. Women's right to vote, 19th Amendment. Federal income tax. I don't know what amendment that is because I don't want to pay my federal income tax. On the quiz, I'm going to ask you, tell me 5 additional amendments that have been added to the Constitution besides those guaranteed under the Bill of Rights. Look in the book, find 2 more, but right now, but there have been 17 added since the Bill of Rights was established in 1791. You don't need to know that. The First Amendment. All right, the First Amendment under the Bill of Rights is the freedom, what we affectionately known as the freedom of speech. But it's more than that. The First Amendment reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Wow. We are given a lot in the First Amendment. All right. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. What that means is there's no federal religion. All right. Congress can't say that Catholics are the religion of the United States. Catholicism. Can't say that Protestants are the religion of the United States. No, it can't. There can be no federal religion in the U.S. because Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of any religion. All right, that's the first part. Second part says the Congress cannot prohibit the free exercise thereof. That means you, as a person, can practice whatever religion you want. You have the free exercise thereof. It cannot be prohibited. You can practice Judaism, Catholicism, Protestant, Muslim. You can be Wiccan. It doesn't matter. It's your right, and nobody can tell you cannot practice the religion of your choice. Okay, you cannot exercise the religion of your choice. All right. Continuing on, the First Amendment says the Congress cannot abridge the freedom of speech. You have a right to say what you want. There are some limitations on it. We're going to go over those. But you have a right to say what you want to say. The First Amendment also gives the press the freedom to print whatever they want to print, as long as it's absent of malice, but we'll get into that. And it's the right for people to peacefully assemble. Okay, so you're given a lot of rights. You're given a lot of power just within the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights. First Amendment freedom of speech, there are 3 categories. Over the past 230 years, all speech isn't free. All right, there's been divided into 3 categories. There's fully protected speech, limited protected speech, and unprotected speech. Okay? We're going to go over those. But there are 3 categories of speech. Fully protected, limited protected, and speech that's deemed unprotected. And you aren't given any protection under the First Amendment. All right. Fully protected speech, political speech. All right. No law can forbid a citizen from criticizing the government. Political speech is 100% free. No law can forbid citizens from criticizing the government. Limited protected speech, Congress cannot forbid the type of speech that you're saying, but it can forbid the time, manner, and place of your speech. It could put limits on it. All right? So think about that. Offensive speech. There could be some limits on where and when you can say what you want to say if it's offensive. All right? And the manner in which you say it. Howard Stern, prime example. Howard Stern, offensive. offensive to a lot of people. So the FCC can put certain limits on when he can be on the air, what he can say, that kind of thing. All right, commercial speech also has limited protected speech. Commercial speech, not us, commercial speech, business speech. There are certain limitations that can be placed upon it. Highway billboards, a perfect example. The government can say, highway billboards can only be 20 feet high, or only 15 feet high, or only so wide, so big. They're going to be 3 per mile, that kind of stuff. It's not limiting the speech itself, but limiting the time, manner, and place of the speech. Okay, the speech is protected. You can say it, but just where, when, and how you're going to say it can be limited by the government. And then there's unprotected speech, dangerous speech. Right, yelling fire in a crowded theater. Don't do that because somebody get hurt. Everybody get up and run out and trample over each other. Unless there is a fire, then it's not so bad. Fighting words are considered unprotected speech. Defamation, unprotected speech. Child pornography, definitely unprotected speech. You can't say, well, I got child pornography, I'm guaranteed this right under the First Amendment. No, you're not. It's unprotected speech. We as a society deem that offensive and don't care. We don't want to protect that speech. So boom, if you're caught with it, you're going to jail. All right, that's enough on this video. All right, to digest. And there's a lot of stuff. We got the separation of powers. We got the 3 different branches, what they do, the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, which is packed full of rights for us as human beings. So I'm going to end this video now. I want you to think about it. I'm going to post a second video, probably tomorrow or later this week. Review that when you can. But the question for this video is simple. How many constitutions are there in the United States? The answer, 51. Okay, so text me 51 and we're good. I'm going to answer the phone now. Take care.